¿qué tal? Vamos saliendo de la estación de Back Bay. Esta no me había bajado. El día de hoy vamos a ir a Salem. Estamos ya en Boston, ya tomamos el trenecito desde Worcester. Entonces, si quieren ver el video de cómo funciona eso, en mi canal por ahí debe estar. Y el día de hoy venimos con Neko y con Hilario. Cuéntanos, ¿qué estamos haciendo?
Ya me encontré hasta el súper.
Tratamos de llegar a la South Station, porque de ahí sale el tren a... vamos a Salem, no sé si ya dijiste.
¿Pues no es a la North Station esta vez?
Que diga la North Station, si estamos en la...
Podemos hacer esto en la sombra. Y como se puede ver, está Boston. Huele rico, huele a puerto. Y estamos caminando en una dirección random para ver si podemos llegar.
El metro, ¿no?
Vamos a tomar el metro.
Estamos aquí.
Sí, pero no veo.
¿No ven alguna bajada o entrada?
Pon la navegación con cámara.
Sí, es por ahí.
Y como se puede apreciar en el video, nos equivocamos de dirección. Ya encontramos la entrada del tren, al parecer. Y Meño. Supongo que seguiré platicando ya que sepamos precisamente hacia dónde vamos y que vea una dirección clara. Mientras tanto, esto de allá se ve interesante y ese edificio también. Allá también hay una vaca. Cuando llegué había una vaca en Union Station, en South Station.
Como esa, bueno, pintada distinto.
Sí, es diferente. Y yo creo que ya ves que en Reforma luego hay temporada de vacas.
Ajá.
Mira, ahí está la línea anaranjada.
Pues aquí tenga hambre, desayunamos bastante bien. Pero tengo hambre.
Pues si quieres hay que comer un bocadito.
En la North Station habrá algo de comer. Son 2 ¿Dónde estamos?
Aquí.
Back Bay y la North Station.
Aquí.
North Station.
The next Forest Hills train arrives.
Pero si quiero comprar otro, tengo que hacerlo de vuelta.
¿Y aquí es esto?
Kiwi. Un boleto. ¿Un kiwi nada más?
Porque todavía tenía
Ah,
el
¿es
de
el de
vuelta.
regreso? Lo guardo yo. ¿Quieres que te guarde yo el tuyo?
Sí, por favor. Nosotros desayunamos pues bien, o sea, huevito con chorizo y frijolitos. Pero tengo hambre. Nunca entendí cuál es la diferencia entre outbound y inbound.
Creo que uno entra a la ciudad y otro sale de la ciudad. Porque normal creo que no va a este lado. Porque acá dice on-road.
In the dead of midnight, someone's creeping down the hall. See those yellow uniforms? We're the ones who've got it all. We might trigger an alarm, but we never come to harm, because before the cops can catch us, we could call my mom. We're great at crime. Don't call us dumb. Yeah, we're great at crime. Pistols and bubble gum. The boys in blue are here for you. There is nothing they can do. Scruffle, scratch, skedaddle up a creek without a paddle. No, you cannot rattle us, cause we are great at crime. Larceny, incarcerated, arson's kind of overrated. There's no reason to debate it. Great at crime, great at crime, great at crime. While you're busy sleeping, we are sneaking through your yard. Beware of dog, it's just a bluff. This won't be very hard. Your security won't stop us. Know that you can never top us. We're sneaking through the chimney and then we get stuck. We're great at crime. Help! I can't get out. Yeah, we're great at crime. I think I swallowed brown. Grab the hooch and then we scooch. Unless you got a scary pooch. Rip and rob and Rudel, but it all feels rather futile when you're chewed up by a poodle. No, we're great at crime. Larceny, incarcerated, arson's kind of overrated. There's no reason to debate it. Great at crime, great at crime.
Llegamos ya a la estación de metro llamada North Station. De aquí, en la parte de allá, sale un trenecito que es el que nos va a llevar a Salem. Entonces, de la misma forma que en Union Station, aquí está el letrero que nos dice a dónde vamos. Entonces, justo ahorita no lo alcanzo a ver, pero bueno, sí, Rockport vía Salem, seguramente debe ser ese. A las 2:30 son 11:10. Newburyport vía Salem. El segundo es el que sale a la 1:30 y es el que estamos esperando. Nosotros de este lado vamos a ir a comprar dulcecitos porque Nico y Hilario tienen un poquito de hambre, yo también, y bueno, los voy a encontrar y ahorita continúo.
Great at crime. So got a brand new target. That museum is our next mark. Breaking in at 7, cause we are scared of the dark. And the creeping apprehension of the dangers of detention doesn't get a single mention, and I'll tell you why.
Ya hicieron el anuncio, nuestro tren sale en el andén 4, que es por el cual yo vengo caminando. Entonces, para que vean el tren, a esta estación de tren no había venido, y vamos a grabar todo el caminito hasta que nos sentemos. Este es el tren que nos lleva a Salem.
Hit me with the motto, fellas, one more time. Great at crime.
I feel remedial English.
Yeah, we're great at crime.
I don't understand basic rhyme structure.
Let's scrap this crime, cause what's the harm? Oh, we triggered the alarm. It's just a minor hiccup, I could call my mom for pickup. It's the sleep, I got the trick up, cause I'm great at crime. Thought that I was cunning, but my mama isn't coming. Really should've started running, cause we're great at crime. The coppers were a big surprise, they're trying us, we're evil guys. They wouldn't be here otherwise, we're great at crime. Larceny, incarcerated, arson's kind of overrated. There's no reason to debate it, great at crime. Doing time, great at crime.
Achieve what I feel, love bounding through every hour, joy lights a new day, tie me tight to a cross, I look longing at the sky.
Y aparte me hace sentir bien, porque yo no comparto sus ideas porque ella es vegana, pero ella tuvo o sea,
Hemos llegado a Salem, esta es la estación.
y se encuentra con muchos signos de experimentación de animales que no
Se puede
siempre
ver
es extrapolable a humanos.
el letrerito.
Se hace un inicio de
Entonces,
seguir experimentando en animales porque
vamos a ver la parte histórica del lugar, y según me dicen, el pueblo es súper bonito, es como que un pueblo histórico, y bueno, ya supongo que saben lo que pasó acá, pero si no, es como lo de la cacería de brujas de una época muy oscura. Pero bueno, ya seguiré mostrándoles.
lo importante son los papers, no los ideales. Entonces ella decide abandonar todo y pone una panadería vegana. Así, entonces yo la veo feliz, la veo contenta, la veo bien. Y gana un montón de plata. Entonces, se le ha ido muy bien con su panadería y ella se siente más en paz porque siente que está haciendo, a lo mejor no conciencia, pero con un panecito a la vez ella siente que está aportando algo al mundo. Si es buena científica, pues más, no.
Esa gente como aspiracional que cree que su trabajo o es muy vacío, como que hay un trabajo solo porque
Tu trabajo no te define, pero sí es una lástima que todo el conocimiento especializado que tienes se desperdicie. Pero eso no es tu culpa, eso es culpa del sistema. Debería haber formas de promover que crezcas y que hagas cosas más importantes. Pero pues si la sociedad te da la espalda, lo único que puedes hacer es ver por tu propio bien. Caminamos solamente un par de calles saliendo del metro. De hecho todavía se alcanza a ver acá. El área dice comemos, ¿no? Entonces estamos viendo dónde comer. Y cuéntenos qué es lo que han visto. ¿Ya encontraron algún lugar? ¿Se les antoja algo? ¿Tienen ganas de algo en particular? Boston Hot Dog Company.
Vamos a resolver el almuerzo y...
Aquí se ve bastante incluyente en el lobby meter. No solamente es inclusivo por la bandera, sino que conocen el sistema métrico decimal, es maravilloso.
¿Cómo sabes que conocemos?
Odd meter.
Odd meter.
Si fuera de medidor no sería tan odd como tú crees, entonces es el metro extraño. Y bueno, estamos por aquí, en el paseíto. Y al parecer les gustó mucho aquí en Boston Hot Dogs. Y vamos a ver qué tal. Parece que es un lugar solamente de paso.
No quiero como... O sea, todo va a estar bien, pero tampoco quiero que estemos debatiendo durante horas a dónde vamos. O sea...
Sugiero que pongamos reglas básicas, que tenga mesas, que no sea comida rápida.
Ah, ok, bueno.
Eso está bien.
Que sea un restaurante de verdad.
Para no dar tanta vuelta, o sea, pasarnos una hora discutiendo qué vamos a hacer. Sí, algo que tenga mesitas, que no sea comida rápida.
Vamos a hacer algo remotamente. Mira calor.
Me llama la taberna.
Vamos a ver.
Acuérdate, es un mercado, mira, de comida. Eso dice ya París.
I think she's wanting to like. She's applying.
En Maps no le salió nada interesante.
Oh,
Tal vez si buscas en Foursquare. Ah, qué bonito.
Qué buenísimo. Pikachu.
pues esta se ve buena.
¿Ustedes de qué tienen antojo de comer?
A ver, busquemos esto enfrente en Google Maps, a ver qué tan caro
El
es.
menú.
Porque...
¿Les ayudo a buscar un lugar?
No, no,
Sí,
ya lo vamos a encontrar.
si quieren.
Acá.
I got me a book.
Entre 20 y 30 los...
Sí. Claro.
Por allá pasa mucha gente, tal vez podríamos buscar sobre esa calle.
Bueno, dale. ¿Comíamos?
¿O les llamó la atención acá?
Sí, ahora me pensé.
Sí.
Pues vamos.
Bueno, veamos una opción más y si no, regresamos acá.
Hacemos tic tac tac tac. Vamos a seguir. Vamos a dar una vueltita.
Tiene que ponernos los sentados y vemos qué hay que hacer en la ciudad, ¿no? Yo creo que va a ir de esto, seguro.
I think just because it turned out to be such a gorgeous
Dejaron, eso debe ser una locura.
Hi, Mom.
Yeah, they have all the
something interesting. Like a specific address.
If I pray, who will hear? I am drowning in their tears. Devotion turned to dusty tunes. If my love was just a curse, then I have only tears to shed. Penitence for your crime, penitence in your life. Let it light, let it burn up bright, and with it all your spine. You bow the weight of death, and soon. Come now, open your eyes. Look up to the flames in the sky. Come now, do not forget those embers or the final judge. One time, long, long ago, there lived a young witch in the land. Ah, yes, she.
Esas papas me salvaron la existencia.
Mira, deben vender los sombreritos.
Vamos a recorrer.
comprar un gorrito de bruja.
Sí, vamos por un gorrito, a lo mejor no se tiene de curiosidades.
Mucha gente gótica.
Sí, pues me imagino que por el lugar. Me siento underdressed. Debería haber venido toda el lugar.
Sí, debí ponerme las medias y el corset.
Una placa re linda de train, pero no le saqué fotos. Estoy sacando fotos a eso.
Ah,
Porque dice el nombre de la ciudad, ¿viste?
ah, ya.
Voy a la vuelta de mostrar. Que tenían unos barquitos. Es como mucho tiempo para la hora que es.
Sí.
Las 12:20.
Nos dijeron que tardan media hora y al parecer tenemos mucho más hambre que eso, entonces ya no vamos a ir a la taberna, vamos a ir al restaurante japonés que está acá enfrente y esperemos que el tiempo de espera sea menos de media hora.
Ya acabamos en los fondos.
Ahí nos pasamos con motor.
ver qué tal está este lugar. Se ve bastante interesante. Entonces están pidiendo esta mesita y vamos a ver la mesita de este lado.
O esta. You were saying this one, right?
Ah, pues, ¿qué quieres?
It's up to you. Or here. Thanks.
Y bueno, va a ser esta mesa.
Está bastante linda, hecho.
Estamos aquí en Salem y esta es una estatua muy bonita de la serie Hechizada.
Sabrina la bruja adolescente.
Sabrina la bruja adolescente. Fue unos 20 años después más o menos.
¿Habrá una estatua de Sabrina?
Debe estar por aquí la casita.
Es en Massachusetts, pero no
Sí,
dicen
porque...
que es un pueblo inventado.
Sí, pero no es en Salem porque hay un capítulo donde van a Salem.
Sí, es verdad.
Pero sí está intencionalmente hecha en Massachusetts.
Y bueno, vamos a dar ahora el rol. Ya terminamos de comer, ya somos felices, ya tenemos energía.
Sí.
Y vamos a ir a conocer el pueblito. Nos dimos cuenta que hay varios tours nocturnos y que todavía hay bastante que podemos alcanzar de este lado. Entonces, pues vamos a caminarle por acá. Nada más sentí fea la mirada del tipo que trae el FX3 colgando en el hombro.
Ay.
Y así como de esa cámara con ese gimbal. Y yo, por lo menos yo no estoy calvo. Lo que sí veo es que muchas personas vienen con su sombrerito.
De bruja.
Ahí mira, ahí están los sombreritos y ahí morado. Vamos a ver qué tan caros están, ¿sí?
$50.
Sí, no, $50 no, 5, sí, 10, bueno ya, pero no mames, es como ir al Chopo.
Oye, sí, súper gótico el lugar.
Esta Jade se va a morir de la envidia de que vine y no le avisé.
$30
La madre, no. Yo no quiero nada. ¿O quieren pasar a ver ustedes?
Ya sé dónde quiero vivir.
Caminaría un poco ahora que está lindo y ya más tarde si no que...
Compramos algo.
Sí, total, pero...
Es un lugar súper gótico. Bueno, no es que me sorprende. Bueno, no, sí me sorprende porque realmente nunca sé qué esperar del Massachusetts. Sí, es muy gótico, ¿verdad?
Hay más góticos en Center Plaza.
Ahí viene tiempo.
Ay, quiero vivir en Salem. Perdón. Studio Horror Cinema. Ah, es un gift shop.
¿Quieres entrar a ver?
Toda la semana. Shiny purple.
Ya estamos. También es muy común que tengan las manos. Igual caminaría por allá porque se supone que ya está en la plaza central, ¿no?
La CBS también dice algo. ¿Le dan pociones?
Y acá
¿Y será que siempre se hacía solo porque se acerca Halloween?
Yo creo que sí a todo.
¿Cómo? There is.
I got stoned in Salem, Massachusetts. All right. So you're doing okay.
No puedo creerlo, es como si todo el pueblo fuera una tienda de regalos. Vamos por tacos. Send nudes.
And then about 2 seconds after.
Y además es super queer, creo que debía arreglarme más.
Sí, yo también me siento underdressed.
Very specific ideas about what he wants. I like it.
Omen, psychic parlor and wish. Pregunto si cómo será ir a Catemaco.
Más o menos así.
Ay, ¿sabes a lo que nunca he ido? Que quiero ir a la casa de las muñecas de Xochimilco.
Ah, está bonito.
¿Tú sí has
Bueno, he
ido?
ido a la isla.
Sí, a la isla de las muñecas.
De hecho, comimos allí una vez.
En la isla con las muñecas mirándote. Sí.
Sí, tiene como, no sé si, no recuerdo con claridad si fue ahí o al ladito.
Pues es una isla que no sé por qué está lleno de muñecas, pero muy creepy.
Un lugareño decidió colgar cabezas de muñecas que se encontraba y la gente lo empezó a asociar con algo sobrenatural. Pensaban que era un ritual o algo oscuro, pero no, el tipo nada más era así como de, pues pensé que se vería interesante.
Pero sí se ve súper creepy.
Y después empezó a colgar más y más y más muñecas y se volvió una atracción turística. Pero sí, o sea, no hay ninguna historia sorprendente detrás, no es nada histórico, no es nada memorable, es como...
Pero se ve muy padre.
Sí, por hacerle a la mamá nada más.
Pero hay solo esto o hay algo que...
Es un árbol como de este tamaño con cientos de muñecas de plástico desnudas colgadas.
Casa, ¿no?
¿Qué?
También hay una casa.
Hay una casa atrás, pero la casa es después.
Ya, en la ciudad normal.
Interesante.
Algo de la ecología, como para... ¿cómo se llama esto? Como para concientizar sobre el cambio climático y bla, bla, bla. Algo así. Ah, mira aquí está. No, it's not that bad.
No le hace daño la pintura, no sé.
No sé.
They put food coloring in the rain. They took the vaccine.
Environmentally friendly water. Dead point.
Yeah.
No encontré el paraguas.
Creo que de acá a la izquierda se va a la
That's okay. We were at the cathedral.
No, hay iglesia ya. Tenían el attention span de un mosquito.
My dad with the exam faces.
Con las medias de encaje. Bueno, de perdida de negro. Bueno, no sé si es que toda la gente se dice para venir acá,
Sí.
porque viene siendo un tipo de gente que normalmente se dice. Que este es el lugar para ir. Sí, es como ir al choco gigante. ¿No?
Sí.
Creo que acá a la izquierda en la plaza.
Yeah, it's been a great.
Came to trick a young prince, so the story goes. She kept all the magic out of sight. How else to achieve what you feel? Love burning the final hour. need for a magic to stop time. No spell can achieve what we feel. Love bounding through every hour. Joy lights a new day. Tie me tight to a cross, I look longing at the sky. Penitence for your crime, penitence and your life. If I pray, who will hear? I am drowning in their tears. Devotion turned to dust.
Heads of these ladies of Salem. You see the torsos on the lampposts? Those were found on the bows of vessels. You can find one of the largest collections inside the East India Marine Hall if you travel through the Peabody Essex Museum. 97% of them were female. Some were mythological beasts like mermaids. Some were men too. The superstitious sailors, they believed it was a good idea to have a female presence on board without actually having a female present on board. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm superstitious, I'm just a little stitious. Now going to cacao, chocolate to die for, and coffee too. Cacao means cacao or chocolate in the Olmec language. I get a lot of practice as I travel through here, but I used to butcher some of these words. Like when we go by the end of the corner here, I used to say pamplemousse is pamplemousse, and it means grapefruit in French. And if you pop in, I say grab a few drinks, a fancy bite to eat, take it back to your hotel room, enjoy it on your travel back in. And I say go into all these stores up and downtown. I'm a constant person, a creature of habit. Anytime I go to the Red Lion Cafe, I always try the chicken mushroom pie. It's dynamite. Then just go down, 3 doors down, to the Hotel Salem. Take the elevator up to the top floor. I recommend you grab a bite to eat, a drink or two, but definitely do grab the 360 view, the scene of the city. You'll see the whole trip that we traveled today. On the left-hand side, go to Modern Millie's, old-time fashion with a modern-day feel. Well, if you go inside there, I say pop into the New England Dog Biscuit Company just next door. They just closed up. You find that patriotic pup and more. Just next door to a historic staircase that was actually designed by Charles Bulfinch, the famed designer behind the State Capitol building with the Golden Dome. Well, he also was the inspiration for a place on TV, a fictional place where everybody knew your name and they're always glad you came. Cheers. The Bulfinch pub is the original. Cheers are replica pubs. But go inside to Dealer Marcus today and the doors are still open so you can find teas, candles, soaps, and more. But when you go to open up their closet door, it's got the weight of a vault because it once was a bank. There's triple timelines of history and I could never fit it all in for you, but I tried to. 1698, the Old London Coffee House. You'd find fathers of our revolution meeting with the daughters of our revolution, the sons of liberty too. Paul Revere, John Hancock, and more, they planned the revolution here. They complained about the hated taxes of the time. We can still find fathers and sons and daughters of Salem at Red Sandwich Shop complaining about the hated taxes here in Massachusetts. We have a nickname here, anybody know? Taxachusetts, yep. The locals know. If you want to live tax-free, you're going to move up to New Hampshire. We can live tax-free or die hard trying. Now I promise you this is the truth. The first time today out of my other 4 tours, I've remembered to point out the Yin Yu Tank House. On the left-hand side, you're going to see a white structure that's just opposite of the Charter Street Cemetery. That white structure is a Mandarin roof. You see that Mandarin roof, that arch there? 1792, originally constructed in China. Lived in by 8 generations of the same family, the Wang family, 16-bedroom home. Just across from the Charter Street Cemetery, 1637, also known as Old Berrien Point. You can find one of the only known marked graves of a Mayflower passenger, Captain Richard Moore. He sailed over at age 11 as an indentured servant. He grew to be a proud Salem sea captain. He lived to be 77 years. He's buried here. There's Anne Bradstreet, the first published poet in America, not poetess, the first published poet. She wrote the 10th Muse. She's buried here. There's a Captain William Haythorne, a Nathaniel Haythorne, and a Judge John Haythorne buried here. He had the heinous nickname the Hanging Judge for a reason. His involvement in the witchcraft hysteria of 1692 is the execution that he often gave, alongside Judge Jonathan Corwin. I'll tell you a little bit more throughout the tour of the Witch Hysteria 1692, but we're going by the Witchcraft Trial Memorial in just a moment. So just adjacent to this historic home on the right-hand side, this first period home, dating back to the 1660s, you see these folks gathered alongside the Witchcraft Trial Memorial. You'll see 20 granite benches that protrude from the wall. Alongside Old Berrien Point is benches that come out with the names and dates of the victims of 1692. There was 19 people that were hanged, 14 were women and 5 were men. Sad, and it said that 5 ended up dead while awaiting trial too. One man was pressed to death also, Giles Corey. It's a sad time in 1692, and one person looking to distance himself from that history was Nathaniel Hawthorne. That's why he added a W to his last name when he graduated from Bowdoin College, because he was originally born Nathaniel Haythorne. Like his father, he was the son, or great-grandson, I should say, of Judge John Haythorne. That's why straight ahead you see Hawthorne Boulevard, the statue Nathaniel Hawthorne, placed before the oldest hotel in Salem, 1925, the Hawthorne Hotel. And he wrote a story about working at the customs office, an intro to the Scarlet Letter. We go by the third and final customs office where he was employed in just a moment. The center statue here, a famous father from Ireland, County Tipperary, apostle of temperance, is named Father Matthew. He started a total abstinence movement, no alcohol at all. Well, that wasn't well received by all Salem citizens, seeing as they had originally tried to remove alcohol as early as 1657 here. But believe it or not, 1838, when he started that movement in Ireland, it did spread here, the temperance movement. In 1848, he came through, Father Matthew. We had a parade for him. We eventually put up this statue. Now, it's tough to say, but at one point in time, New England men were paid a portion of their paycheck in the form of New England spiced rum, because molasses was a major import. That was a major component of spiced rum. If you don't believe me, you see a major pirate history here, just alongside this brick structure. This is a revolutionary woman, a proud businesswoman, Lydia Pinkham. She started the first free birthing clinic. Alongside, there's a plaque that shows that that land was once owned by Captain Richard Moore, and then alongside the Pirate Museum, you see those pirates climbing up the wall there. That's because as early as 1691, there was a major pirate problem here. Along the Gold Coast, the Golden Age of piracy flourished right here. And it said that the Puritans hired a young captain, a Captain Kidd, to capture Captain Blackbeard. Well, he didn't successfully capture Blackbeard because he became a pirate. He realized that life was better paid and maybe more enjoyable as a pirate, so Captain Kidd became one. Now we're pulling down Pickering Way, which is the first of 4 wharfs that we're going to take a tour through today. Out of 50, they were filled in, only 4 remaining today. This is Pickering Way, named after Colonel Timothy Pickering, a local militia leader and a member of Washington's cabinet, Secretary of Treasury. I think he was the Postmaster General and more. Well, he was an integral part in the Revolutionary War. This area, though, was beautifully constructed in the 70s, and you see alongside the buildings the name Privateer or Arbella along some of them. They were famous vessels that came in and out of the ports here. Well, the Privateer War era took place after the Golden Age of piracy. From 1775 to the War of 1812, privately paid vessels could go out and ransack ships at sea. One of the examples of one of those privateer warships is seen straight ahead. This friendship existed between a friendship of a Jeremy Pearson and Aaron Watt. And with their friendship, they created this lightweight schooner, 1797, that vessel. Originally, it made 15 voyages around the globe. This is a replica ship. It was built in 1999 in Albany, New York, and towed up here for you to take a tour through. Saturdays and Sundays, you can check out the top deck. See one of those ladies of Salem on the front, the bow of the vessel there, the woman in blue and white. They were the eyes and ears out at sea. That had made 15 voyages around the globe before being caught, condemned, and sold by the British. The crew taken as prisoners of war too. A tough time to live, 1775 to 1812, that privateer war. Now as we go alongside here, I mentioned some of the witch history. In 1692 there were no actual witches, but today you can go to Laurie Cabot's magic shop on the right. She's Salem's favorite witch for a reason. In her 90s, still a practicing witch. She helped dispel the myth that witchcraft was a bad thing. For her work with children with special needs, she was awarded the Patriot Award. She's written books all about finding that powerful spirit within you. Well, believe it or not, if you wanted to enjoy some spirits from 1920 to 1933, that was a funeral home by day, this building straight ahead. If you knocked on the door and said the word above the door, bunghole, you got in. That was the password, 1920 to 1933. If you wanted to have some spirits, you had to cozy upside some recently deceased. Funeral home by day, speakeasy at night. Third spot to get its liquor license when Prohibition was lifted in 1933. The Watton Pierce name pops up again above the National Maritime Visitor Center here, and we're alongside Central Wharf and Derby Wharf, dating back to 1762, and we're on Derby Street, and there's Derby Light. Stretching half a mile into the harbor, you see that lighthouse with the black stripe atop, that white structure there, 2-story tall? That's Derby Light. We're on Derby Street, named after Captain Richard Derby. He went on to have a famous son, Elias Haskett Derby, who married Elizabeth Crowninshield. And that prominent name pops up again just across the street here, the Brookhouse Home for Aged Women. I took a tour 2 months ago with some of the gals that live there, and they clued me on a history I didn't know. Built for Captain Benjamin Crowninshield, Secretary of the U.S. Navy right here, 1810. The brickwork, the bondwork, you see that Flemish style bondwork, that's mastered by Samuel McIntyre. Just next door you see the third and final customs house, 1819, that's when Nathaniel Hawthorne was a surveyor on the first floor and an author at the same time. He's writing the Scarlet Letter. And the inspiration for the novel, the next spot that we go to, the House of Seven Gables in just a few minutes. 1780 and 1762, these houses are available for you to take a tour through. The oldest brick house in Salem. Elias and Elizabeth called their little brick house for their first 20 years right here. 1762, the Derby House. America's first cash villa there. He became famous and wealthy from the privateer war era as well as the spice trade. Famous figure came through this street here, Oprah Winfrey, and she decided to stop in at the oldest candy shop in America. Coming up in front of that yellow home, you see those folks gathered. Inside you can find some of the oldest candies on display here. The Salem Gibraltar. It's a hard sugar peppermint or a lemon candy. Well, Salem Gibraltar was traded all over the globe, but started with humble beginnings of Miss Mary Spencer. She was originally shipwrecked, basically. She lost her possessions at sea. And if you go inside that store there, you can find the reason why Oprah popped in. She tried the chocolate turtles on her, and she talked about them on her show, and they were sold out for seasons to come. Well, I recommend you go inside there and you can meet Susie and Shay and the other folks that work behind the counter. And they're great people at the Ye Old Pepper Company, the oldest candy shop in America. Now just next door, is anybody going to the House of Seven Gables right here? This is one of the most historic sites in America. The house dates back to 1668, but you won't be able to see it here, there, or anywhere near here unless if you pay to get in, because it's buried beyond the beautiful foliage. But I give you a quick little cheat sheet. If you look straight ahead, see that gate? This is Turner Street. If you take a right down Turner Street and you look up at the dead end, you'll see the site of the historic home with the same name, the House of Seven Gables. You'll see all seven gables and the clear seaside view that they have. But I recommend you pay the tourist fee to go in, because you see the homes built in 1655, the retired Beckett House, a famous sea captain, Nathaniel Hawthorne's birth home from 1804. The Hathaway Bakery, towed all the way from Washington Street here by one powerful woman. Caroline Emerton is the name. She's considered to be the mother of tourism because anything received there today goes into this hall received here. It's designed for newly arrived immigrants to learn the English language, job, life skills, and more still. Since 1910 today, the funds all received there go into Caroline Emerton Hall. But if you go down Turner Street, you see that site. You go down Turner Street, there, Blaney Street or White Street, they're all named after famous sea captains. Carlton Street, White Street. Captain White was mysteriously murdered one night here in Salem. We talk about that at the tail end of the tour. Captain Blaney and more. You see all these famous houses, 1804. Coming up in a moment, you're going to see a plaque that will show 1800, 1807, and 1802. Starting at this yellow home come up for you, but it's the close position and in between that I try to show. See, they had to position their houses very close together to watch over each other's properties while they were away at sea 1 to 2 years. Also sometimes to protect against the harsh winter winds here along Winter Island, harbor here. Well, where we came from, Picker and Wharf, once was the storage spot for coal and oil, where they burnt. They created so much smog and soot that you couldn't quite clearly see in the area. I'd like to ask at this point in time, is there any veterans aboard the trolley? No, we honor our veterans, and one of our local heroes is a man by the name of Albert Izzard, and he was voted most likely to succeed in Salem. He went on to graduate from UMass with a degree in English, but then he joins the military, and his proud military career is why we have a park by the name Izzard Park. After Albert Izzard, he joins the military, and in World War II becomes a brigadier tank general. On Roger's side of the driver's side of the boat, you're going to see a fully working tank. That this Mr. Albert Izzard, he was brigadier tank general in Patton's army in World War II, the Berlin crisis of '61, and then finally in 1971, during the Vietnam War, he retires. 31 proud years of service. See that fully working tank right there? Not a typical site you see next to a park with a swing set and climbing structure and more. Well, my man Roger just took a little side detour because most of the day we're on a tight time schedule. This is the last tour of the day, so you got to see that site, which stands out to a lot of people, not something typical to see. But 31 years in the military. I won't lie, I've heard about his military career, but I've never heard the tale of how that tank made it all the way back here. That was fascinating to find out sometime. The city's fuel burning facility on the right though, it burns clean fuel today, but at one point in time, coal and oil. Well, it created so much smog and soot you wouldn't see clearly. There was a famous photograph that was taken in 1952 though by a naval officer at the peak of the hill. He was placed at Fort Island in this boat. The naval officer photographs a famous picture of 4 blue lights in a strange formation over that power plant. The lights over Winter Island is what the famous photograph is known as. Same site was seen in 2013, 2015, 2017, and 2019 by Salem citizens. I've never seen that site personally before. That fuel burning facility, but I have seen blue lights occasionally while notice up the hill here, which is reminding us to slow it down a little bit when we're trying to speed up the door. The Witch City PD says, hey, take it slow. No, but seriously, as we do cruise through and try to find out different points of history, so on the right-hand side, this spot was owned by the Smith family. And the Smith family donated a generous thing to the residents of Salem, a saltwater swimming pool. On the right, you're going to see the site. A causeway with a gated system, and in the center, it allows the sea level to come in and out to the desired amount. That's why up until 1930, you would have seen Salem citizens going for a swim with a diving board and a pier right here. But in 1930, the Coast Guard, they started the search and rescue base at the peak of the hill, and for security reasons, it was closed down to 68. In 72, Salem purchased the property for me, you, and anybody else traveling to come camp up here. Last year, you would have seen Salem State using this property to study shellfish, aquamarine life, and they still call it the Smith Tide Pool today. Coming up on the left-hand side, you're going to see a property that's maintained gorgeously. It's got gorgeous views of Marblehead, parts of Cape Ann, and more. It's known as the Plumber Youth Promise. For 15 youth up to the age of 18, they can call this place a safe place to call home at the Plumber Youth Promise. Originally started though in 1855 as an alternative for young men facing a life behind bars. The Plumber Home for Boys was a work farm with a print shop where people could avoid a life behind bars and live a productive life. Well, today, the same thoughts on philanthropy and humanitarian effort is here. With any boy or girl that just needs a safe place to call home, they do it here, and the Plumber staff gets 5-star reviews for their work and their dedication to the kids. They're putting in a dormitory right here. And they host modern day events like catering to learn job and life skills there on the property. Now we're going to be entering into Winter Island here, and if the staff is still here, they're always friendly and able to answer any questions you may have about this historic property, which goes all the way back to 1642, when a fort was erected here to defend against potential attacks from the Spanish, and it was named Fort William, then Fort Anne. Well, names change, and for different history, different reasons, it later became Fort Pickering, and I'll show you why. But if you come through today, you can travel and stay in an RV, hook up water and electricity here. I do believe for about $45 a night. To rent a spot for a tent, you can stay for I think $14 a day. Great prices here, and you can see why people come in a moment. You're going to see gorgeous views of Marblehead, parts of Cape Ann. Where city's founder, Roger Conan, he had sailed down from 16 miles north of here, and he originally settled this establishment as a fishing community. So you would have seen originally in the 1620s long wooden racks with fish drying out, cod drying out, salted cod here. Years later, shipbuilding community. The first 2 naval vessels, the freights, the USS Essex, as well as the freight, the USS Anna, both constructed and shipped out of here, Winter Island. That's why we're the home of the U.S. Navy. On the right-hand side, you would have seen naval vessels, planes, sea aquatic planes coming out of the front doors of this airplane hangar, going right down the boat launch right behind me in the search and the rescue effort for downed planes and vessels in World War II. But now you can see why people come through and travel and stay with gorgeous views of Marblehead straight ahead. The first community to establish itself different in 1649 to branch off. Well, you can also see Pickering Light right there. With, in the distance, the largest, most visible island is Baker's Island with Baker's Light. That's the third of the 3-point lighthouse system. Now Marblehead straight ahead maybe got its name because the rocks along the shore look like that of black and white veins of marble. It's said that the first people to branch off from the first church of Salem were Marbleheaders. Those guys and gals with the tough necks, the roughnecks, from Salem that didn't want to be told what to do. No fishing on Sundays, no, not for them. They wanted to be able to fish on Sundays and enjoy whatever type of drink they enjoyed. The harsh Puritan laws at the time didn't match with the original settlers of Marblehead. Now, if anybody wants a gorgeous sight of that, my friend Roger positioned perfectly the man so you can capture a view of Pickering Light with Baker's Light in the rear. Now, just know, if you want to go out to Baker's Island, you have to be directly invited by a resident. There's 30 plus summer homes out there, but with no direct running water or electricity, they're very fearful of fire. So you can either take a trip on the Namkeg Heritage, a little vessel that travels out there and unloads folks to visit Baker's Island, or be directly invited. There's other islands that aren't that clearly visible, and they're named Big Misery and Little Misery. The island name came from sailors who went out at sea. They had to quarantine out there because fear of spreading contagious diseases like TB and smallpox. They ran rampant at the time. And so to isolate, quarantine out there, they stayed on Big Misery and Little Misery. Now through the trees you can see remains of the fort, and just past that puddle, the fourth puddle there, you see remains of Fort William, Fort Anne, and then to match the light, the name, Fort Pickering. You can see where those gates were locked up for security reasons. If you go through the trees, you see reeds and remains of a moat, and we used to go subterranean beneath the ground. This was one of the only forts not seized during the Revolutionary War, one of the only harbors not seized. In the 1650s, it was heavily armed during the Dutch War. Years later, a naval officer originally born in Hawaii thought that this site on the right reminded him of home. That's why you see in Perth, Australia, Honolulu, Hawaii, and here in Salem, Waikiki Beach. This does happen to be my favorite beach in Salem because the white sandy beach at the end of the road is gorgeous rocky paths, and there's an outdoor shower and an indoor shower here open 24 hours. But I like the pleasant sounding name of Waikiki Beach. Does anybody know the name of the next beach that we go to? It's a little less pleasant. Dead Horse Beach. I say Waikiki is my favorite spot, but I do swim at Dead Horse Beach. I'll explain more. On the right, you're going to see 3 bunkers that used to store artillery and ammunition. Well, these bunkers, you see those there? If you go through, there's 12 total. And Roger told me a cool fact. As a kid, he used to tank around up here, and they had big metal doors, numbered 0 through 10, and then the last one, 30. To throw invaders, potential invaders, off the looking 20 more that didn't exist. I like the thought process. Now know as we descend down here at the peak of the hill, jump off the microphone, the nickname for the hill is sadly Execution Hill. It wasn't for witchcraft either. Capital offenses such as stealing a horse or burning a barn led to the reasons for the last executions here at the peak of the hill, Execution Hill. Now there was a sad fire that ripped through Salem in 1914, and a third of the city burned for more than 2 days. People recovered in 10 cities here. 18,000 people were placed homeless. Those are astronomical numbers when 1,400 businesses and homes roughly burned. Now I looked up today to see what modern day numbers may look like, and it is sad, and it said that about 1,300 people survived living homeless here today in Salem. We have a great outreach program that's called Lightbridge, with a free shelter, a community store where they can buy low-income goods and get back on their feet again. Oh, off in the distance, I have to be a little kid. You see on the right there, that ship? That is known as the Fame. The name came from a famous band of brothers, and that's a replica ship. It looks like one from 1812. That famous ship made 12 voyages across the globe, but it came back with 20 vessels, and it brought back over $1 million. True story. That band of brothers, they weren't wealthy enough just to finance a vessel out at sea, so they had to man that vessel themselves too. So that band of brothers, they became famous, and the name, the Fame, came because out of those 12 trips, they brought back 20 vessels. On their first trip out, they brought back 2 vessels. They would show their relatives with the lightweight schooners that New England was known for building, because they could sail around these other large vessels really fast, and they were overtaken really quickly. But eventually, when we moved on to larger vessels, we moved on to deeper harbors, Boston, New York, and Philadelphia. But originally, Salem was a top shipbuilding community. Now, straight ahead, we see views of the Salem Willows free parking lot. The name came from Salem Willows when England sent us a gift, over 200 willow trees. And you weren't right, it's all about the position of the mic. My friend Roger, earlier in the tour, I won't lie, I wasn't being heard in the back, and it was the non-tilt. Now straight here you see Salem Willows Park, and if it's free, it's for me. I always say go here, go next door. You'll start to see some of those willow trees alongside this free park, which has a tennis court, basketball court, more. But straight ahead, the tourist destination came out in 1858. We'll explain the reason why England sent us 200 willow trees. We had a nearby isolation hospital. They realized that folks breathe better, recovered under the 8 shade of willow trees in England, their patients, their residents. So, to give us a place to recover from TB and smallpox, they built this park. We built this park, the New Englanders. And I wanted to see if willow trees were used medicinally in history, and I found out that the salicylic acid in the root was used, the willow root, as an anti-inflammatory, just like aspirin. Now, 1858, this area was created, a tourist destination, just like Coney Island. At the end of the road, there's a bandstand where they have blues, soul, jazz fest every year. There's a taste of everything up and down the road. If you go to the Salem Willows Park, you know that this was the first black voting site where black elected officials could be chosen, put into office. If you grab a bite to eat, though, see these seagulls waiting, watching. Mine, mine, mine. We'll read the sign alongside the clam shack, because it will tell you, we do not do returns, do not be gullible. With a giant seagull flying away. I'm sure they've had a few complaints that they lost their meals to a hungry seagull. Well, don't feel bad for them. They don't miss any meals. They stay well fed here, the seagulls. Now, folks, I always ask this question before we get to the next beach. Has anybody seen the film Jaws? Yeah? Well, coming up in a second, you're going to see the site of the Beverly to Salem Bridge, or the Salem to Beverly Bridge, and this beautiful beach that is known as Dead Horse Beach. Well, the name has nothing to do with the filming of Jaws or the movie itself. I just try to lighten up the load a little bit of commonality here. That sad fire in 1914, it's sad and it's said that over 12 fire horses ended up dead when they had to pull the carriages close enough to the blaze to put it out. Well, we honor them with the name here, Dead Horse Beach. It's a gorgeous way to spend the day. You can see there's seashells to go collect them. There's a little cool cove to the right, a little private cove to the left. There's a modern day rule here at Dead Horse Beach. No horsing around. Yeah, you gotta lighten up the history here. Now, before we get over the next road, I try to tell you this history before we get there because it's bumpy and it's loud. Memorial Drive. Veterans returning home from World War I were able to purchase lots of land in a lottery for $1. Now I sound like an auctioneer selling off these plots of land for $5 after the World War II. And after the Korean War, finally, the remaining plots of land were sold for $15. A great investment for a veteran returning home. But the distance from the heart of town, as well as the close proximity to a nearby isolation hospital, made it a major deterrent. Charles Bullfinch, that famed designer, that architect, he designed a building big enough to house 100 residents. It was used as an isolation hospital at the end of the road. But just know, $1, $5, and $15 the original property is purchased. Now the lots of land can go for $300,000 to $400,000 alone. Now when we go past, there'll be a blue home, a gray home on the passenger side, and then a brown home. A circus and an elephant. Not this particular elephant I'm speaking of, but in 1795 people did. After paying 50 cents in New York, they paid 25 cents here. Kids were half off. I joke and say if you didn't want to pay, you jumped the fence. That's what I would have done. Hocus Pocus fans, I gotta get you set up more. 3 doors down. Hard to see that brick school with the crane out front recently. That is the Phillips School. That school was known as the Phillips School until 1992, but in 1993 will forever be the Bailey High School, where the witches go looking for their master, where the dance takes place, and also for dramatic effect, where Max passes Allison his phone number, well, she folds it up and gives it right back to him. I time it for the same time, storytelling sake, keeps me on time. He takes off on his bike through the pathway of the common, feeling rejected here. Well, I really am not in pain there, Max. I've done it before, brother. Now here, this was a common spot to feed your animals, a common place like cows, goats could come graze here. It was a swampy, hilly area. It wasn't leveled off and beautified until the early 1800s, and when the wealthy elite, they planned the street, they put these pineapples on the top of the poles. Also on the top of the bandstand there, you see a massive pineapple too. That's because it's the colonial symbol of being welcome. If you see it on a real estate sign, on a floor mat, a door knocker, or a bedpost, it is because if a sailor was out at sea in the Polynesian Islands, let's say if he saw a pineapple atop a pole, it meant that it was safe for room, board, and trade as well. And we're in Washington Square North, Washington everywhere, because he came through in his inaugural parade in 1789. Well, what he did, a young architect, a young artist by the name of Samuel McIntyre, he sketches a quick profile of the president. And he does it so good that he carves it to wood. It becomes a centerpiece. That centerpiece is hung up and known as the Washington Archway. On the left-hand side, or around just side, the driver's side, you're going to see that modern-day display, I say, of Samuel McIntyre's original work. See that moving fabric, that linen design? That's called a swag design. And if you see the profile of the president there, 1789 to 1797, you see beneath that gold eagle, kind of looks like a gold chicken to me, but that's a bold statement to say. If you see the original work from 1805, I think Samuel McIntyre blows away the modern display. You be the judge though. Just remember, that's a modern day work. When we go to 1805, see which one you think is better. Now on the right hand side, going through the sad witches story of 1692. This is one of our destined stops here at the Salem Witch Museum. This is where Adam Sandler taped the film Hubie's Halloween inside, and he gave those gifts, those lights, for letting us tape inside and outside here. Now we shed a sweet light on the Halloween capital of the world that Salem is here today. But that sad witch hysteria of 1692, just know that there were no actual witches then. But there is roughly 1,500 witches walking amongst you today. The one man that was not a witch is the man in the center statue, which this plaque has been up explaining his life since 1914. That's Roger Conan. With that tall hat and the cloak, don't be mistaken, like National Geographic did in 1970. They took a side profile picture without seeing that front plaque. They didn't read between the lines, and they put up an article that said, Salem's favorite witch. That's investigative journalism at its worst right there. Now try to point out oldest hotel in Salem, Hawthorne Hotel with a bold eagle there. 1925, the oldest hotel, that's where the cast and crew of Bewitched stayed. You see the Bewitched statue in the second part of our tour. They get calls asking if that's the Bewitched Hotel still today. The Crown and Shield name pops up again, built for Captain John Crown and Shield, 1727, that yellow George in there. Just next to a famous home, the Garden of Green Mansion, outside the mysterious murder of Captain White one night right there. If you do a quick response scan, a QR code scan on these historic homes, I promise I'll tell you no lies. Strange history I can't even make up. We're going to be back here in 20 minutes, folks. 20 minutes right from right now. This is, we're about to take part in the McIntyre District, where we drive down Chestnut Street, where all the homes are on the National Registry for Historic Homes. Now, this was the home to a famous man from Salem, Edward Filene, and he started the first Filenes right here on the right. Today it's the Peabody Essex staff. Well, hats off to them because they maintain many historic landmarks. The museum you see across the way in. This fountain is said to represent a relationship with the sister museum in Ota, Japan. See that Mandarin archway there? That shows some of the artifacts, the influences from the Far East that we still have in Salem today. Just so you know, this is East India Marine Square right here, because originally you would have had to sail around the globe basically to make it into the East India Marine Hall across the way. This is a factual map that those folks are standing on that shows what we looked like in the 1600s. We just did that waterfront tour where those 50 wharfs were filled in before remaining today. Well, that shows how we tripled in size that bottom layer of cobblestone. If you go inside the East India Marine Hall, and you see on the driver's side there, that massive anchor on the opposite side weighs 4,400 pounds. Beneath it is a gold dollar for good luck. I say if you can move it, you're more than welcome to it, but good luck trying. I try to squeeze in as much as I can for you. Don't try to touch those blue trees. They don't want you to catch the blue disease, turn you blue too. No, I'm just joking, I'm messing with you. There's an artist and activist who's raising awareness about the rapid effects of deforestation and climate change. If you don't discover things like blue trees, if you don't stop, look around, wonder why, they may disappear before they're ever discovered. I have a son and daughter, and I bought a necklace for my daughter made of tourmaline, but I went into this store asking about taurine. I was kind of embarrassed at something that's found in sport drinks. Well, they sent me straight to the village silversmith. Knowledgeable staff, and I'm thankful for the necklace that I was able to give, because tourmaline is supposed to protect against negative energies. When my daughter killed it the next day in a triathlon, I like to think it set the mind at ease, but with the properties that it contains too. On the right, I love the angelic voices that you hear throughout town. Hats off to the performers that do their thing for us, for you. And see 1805, that Customs House Eagle there? This is a historic spot. Anything coming in and out had to be taxed. This once was waterfront property. As we descend down Central Street, know that we'd be making our way into the South River. We go by the North River in a little bit. And luckily for me, the three rivers that run through here all run through the same spots geographically. The South River runs through the south right here, the North River runs through the north, and the Forest River runs through the forest. It's easy and all spelled out for me here, just like K-O-L-P, K-L-O-P Alley. Clop Alley, James K. Polk is named backwards. He didn't poke through his visit here, he rushed through. To honor him and dishonor him, we reversed his name. K-L-O-P Alley. By the end of the tour, I can't even speak, I won't lie. Nilo Valley, but I promise, say no lies. Up and downtown here, you see these yellow walking lines. It's a great divider of traffic, but it's a heritage walking tour. This is going to lead you to Derby Square. America's first cash millionaire lived here, Elias and Elizabeth. When they passed away, they gave the land of the city. It was cleared, an old town hall was put there. That's where Bette Midler sang on the inside, "I put a spell on you." Yep, because you're mine for the next 20 minutes. If you can stay, I promise I won't sing anymore. Bette Midler sang in there, but today you can find the modern day play about Bridget Bishop, the sad ending to her life. She was a proud apple orchard owner, 60-year-old outspoken woman, an independent woman, a flashy dresser, they say. Well, she's walking this walk one day, not in church, on a Sunday. She goes walking by the first church. I'll explain when we go by that site. Straight ahead is the Merchant Hotel, said to be the third most haunted hotel in America. It was formerly the Washington Hotel, but it's the owner of the home originally. The spot was the site where the infamous sheriff of 1692 once owned land. That's why it's got the name, the Merchant Hotel, and beneath it, hey, at Hoswich. I say just next door, pop into there. Say hi to the modern day metaphysics shop that is Hoswich. If you believe in spirits, I want to hear it. I want to see what you look like. If you think you emit a certain color energy, go into there, because they have a special aura photography booth. And I think that every time I ride by, they wave and say hi. I wanted to see what they said about their modern day shop. And they are modern day witches of sorts. They're not the type that you think. Like when Bridget Bishop, she went walking by church, not inside. This was the site of the first church where that beam crashed. But across the street, superstitiously, that is not a witch, that is bewitched. See her, the image there, sitting on top of that crescent moon there. If you turn your neck behind that, it's hard for me to dedicate and talk about everything that's going through. But you hear where that crowd is. That's where the bewitched statue is. They're outside Gula Gula Cafe, where there's always a performance going on. On the right, 1837, built with government surplus money, no taxes paid on that structure there. City Hall. The center of the street here is where once the courthouse for the witchcraft trials sat. It was erased in 1760, looking to demolish and clear that sad history. Cruising down Lime Street right now, we're going to go by the Witch Dungeon Museum in a moment. You can find professional actors who portray the transcripts of 1692 every day. There's a replica of one of the cells where people sadly had to wait for trial. The dungeons, the cells were horrible conditions, often flooded. People were fed terrible food. And here you can find an example of one of the dungeons, the cells here. Those pillories out front, the stocks, are sad reminders. If you weren't in church on a Sunday like today, expect to be there Monday to embarrass you. The Puritan laws, they weren't very tolerant to new ideas, open to new ideas, or ceremonies that weren't found in the Bible. They banned Christmas for 22 years in Massachusetts here. Strange laws that still exist. One law involves the feeding of prisoners this food, not more than 3 times in 1 week. Now this is often a request, a final request of a final meal, but lobsters cannot be fed more than 3 times to prisoners a day. Due to a law existing about cruel and unusual punishment. That was formerly the prisoner food, cockroach of the sea they called it, a bottom feeder. Lobster views, different menus have changed today. So we're going to finish up on Church Street. I say go to Turner's, great spot to grab lobster, chowder, walk, finish up that tour on Church Street in just a moment. Green light, my man. On the right, 1675, the Witch House. Judge Jonathan Corwin lived here. It's a rather opulent home, a rich house to check out. We'll self-guided tour through. You can see these triple casement windows, that style. You can tell it's a first period home. Well, it's one of the only homes with historic ties to the witchcraft hysteria of 1692. I recommend you take a tour through. The next house that we pull up to is known as the Ropes Mansion, but I always mention for the young folks aboard, the Hocus Pocus fans, the young historians, this is Allison's house, just next to the second side of the First Puritan Church in Salem. It's a Unitarian today. But this is where the Halloween party for rich people takes place in the film 1993 Hocus Pocus. Take a self-guided tour through the Ropes Mansion, built in 1727, lived in by a revolutionary judge in the 1770s. But for me, if it's free, out back I say, check out the Ropes Mansion garden. It was left to Sarah, Mary, and Eliza, and they started a gorgeous garden out back with rows of flower beds, a pond, a free library, a sundial, and more. Go to a library where you have to pay a small fee, the second oldest private library in America, next to one in Philadelphia, can be found here at Salem Athenaeum. Right there, you would have found brilliant brains like Nathaniel Hawthorne reading novels under his aunt's membership. Or brothers, the Parker brothers, Edward, Charles, and George, they combined a landlord theme with a banker theme. Well, they would be found traveling down from this yellow Georgian coming up on Roger's side, the driver's side, to this massive yellow Georgian. This was the home to Edward, Charles, and George, the Parker brothers. They combined that landlord theme with the banker theme, and they encouraged people to write their own rules to the game with the name Monopoly. Well, they also rewrote the rules to a murder mystery game with the name Clue. Well, I'll give you a clue. On this street, Essex Street, is where a mysterious murder took place April 1830. On this very street, at the tail end of our tour, we go by the Gardner Pingree Mansion, which was built in 1804 for Captain Nathaniel West, and it was gorgeously done by Samuel McIntyre. But when Captain White was murdered one night without a clue as to who done it, they looked at the back window and it was left unlocked. They cast a shoe print, the precursors to the modern day techniques of a detective with a fingerprint, but they still didn't have a clue as to who done it, until a letter came in from a veteran jailer explaining that one of his prisoners overheard a drunken discussion had in the gambling hall by two Crowning Shield brothers. Now I'll tell you the tale about them at the end of our tour, but the name pops up just next door. Now, 43 and 41, an entrance for Whigs and an entrance for Tories, two brothers, the same name. The Saltonstall House, 1810. The first mayor of Salem, Leverett Saltonstall, 1836. Well, the owner of the home next door with the same style of brickwork can be seen here, the Saunders home. He had that house built for the Saltonstall brothers. And the third house in a row, I try to point out these old styles together. This is federal style architecture with the Flemish style bond work on the front. But what I point out at 37 is the width of the door, because it's wide enough to fit a coffin through or a casket through, because we used to say goodbye to the recently deceased in our parlor room, now called a living room. But it was a spot where we used to give the dead a chance to wake. That's why we call it a wake. If they had a rough Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, hopefully they came to by Monday. A little bit of coffee maybe. Now this federal style architecture is seen with square rectangle buildings, and the third floor is typically compressed. Whether they were taxed on the amount of glass or the number of full floors, I'm not quite sure, but they were taxed on one of the two. But what I point out for you to see is the columns out front, said to be Greek Revival period. You notice these Doric looking columns that look like they could support temples in Greece. It said that the New Englanders were looking to separate from that old English style, that old Georgian style, and create a New England here, and that's why they created the Greek Revival period. As we drive by Pickland Street, just know that the wealthy elite planned the street. Over 60 feet wide, big enough that you could do a 1.5 point turn, or sometimes right here, I say to Roger in a Massachusetts way, hey, bang a U-turn. Well, if you were to bang a U-turn on this one-way street, which I don't recommend you do, you'd be alongside the Pickering family farmhouse. That corner of Botts and Chestnut with the beautiful blue with the slight tilt to it too was the later home of Nathaniel Hawthorne. Sophia Peabody, his 3 young gals, lived here. She was an extreme extrovert, always having folks over for tea and company. When he was painfully shy, they say, and Nathaniel used to sneak away to the Salem Athenaeum where he'd go smoke his pipe in private, read a book or two, and his daughter Una would tiptoe, let him know when it was safe to come home, the guests have gone, the coast is clear. Now just next door, 14 Chestnut Street, is the Benson Mansion where an artist, Frank Benson, lived. And I can only imagine in that 30-room plus mansion that there was massive parties going up and down this whole street. He had a brother on the corner of Hamilton Street. We're going up to Hamilton Hall. Now just past this house, 1832, see Hamilton Hall, 1805. See Samuel McIntyre's moving fabric linen display, I say, on the 3rd floor. See that? Leading up to that center eagle, that proud eagle there in the center. That is his original work from 1805. You be the judge if you thought the Washington Arch is better than that, but I like the original. Much love and congratulations to the folks there. I love everybody having a good day outside Hamilton Hall. Now that was started by that famous Federalist, Alexander Hamilton. That name came because he was our thoughts on fiscal beliefs, considered to be the founding member of our government, the federal belief system, that federal style of architecture and more. Well, in 1804 he came through, but 1805 no longer alive to see the hall with his name because he died in a duel with Aaron Burr. Now on the right, see the Bowditch name here, 1.5 Cambridge Street. We see the name Nathaniel Bowditch. Well, 1773 he was born at 9 North Street. 1784 he was behind that door at age 11 because he becomes an indentured servant to that family. He's got a brilliant brain, and they realize that he's better than just a deckhand out at sea. They use him as supercargo, a super agent. With the knowledge of 20 different languages, he's able to decipher French through the French Bible and more with the base root language of Latin. He's used at all the different ports to trade goods, so the captain can focus on the maintenance and the well-being of the men aboard. Well, while he's there, he discovers 8,000 errors in the nautical text and tables. Well, so this young man, he's recognized for his prominence, his prowess in math and science and astronomy, and he's actually offered a free scholarship to Harvard. But Nathaniel Bowditch, he declines, continues to work for his family. Well, eventually he's awarded a doctorate in math and science because he corrects 8,000 errors in the nautical text and tables. So if you say his name today, you call him Dr. Nathaniel Bowditch. Awarded that from Harvard. And he used that to prove, using the sun, moon, and stars, he had the correct navigation tables, and he corrects it, and he writes a book called The Practical Navigator. So if you join the Coast Guard, the Navy today, they say you get a chest of clothes, your mother's blessing, and a book known as The Bowditch. I like all the architecture up and down the street. I won't lie, I don't know histories behind every home here, but I want to find out more for you. But on the right is William Driver Park, and he was a famous sea captain that gave the nickname to our flag, Old Glory, who's from Salem. Cruising up downtown here on the right, you're going to see the site of the Wesley Church that made it 1888. You see these priceless Tiffany glass windows protected with plexiglass, and a sign that says, "Thou shalt not park without authorization, or thou shalt be towed." I like their sense of humor there. Now, if you see this building, 24 North Street on the corner here, right here, looks like a farmhouse because it once was the city farmhouse. Constructed in 1753, converted to a home in 1769 for Captain Samuel West. Now, just over the bridge, I try to do this as fast as I can. Look up the tail, Leslie's Retreat or the Gunpowder Resistance. If you go 100 paces over the bridge, you come to Salem's Retreat on the corner of Mason Street and North Street. You hear the tale of Leslie's Retreat, where 320 redcoats were sent out to look for ammunition. Well, they had to retreat because they only found militiamen, Minutemen, ready for war here. This was a mud flat. Imagine the first blood drawn was right here. 2 months before the Revolutionary War. The resistance was because Joseph Witcher was smashing his own boat gondola with an axe. In a chest is pressed by a redcoat with a bayonet. The first blood drawn here, he tells this story in the tale and shows his scar from many years later. A peaceful preacher stepped in. He said, 100 paces over that bridge I'll allow to look for ammunition, but not one step further. So if you go 100 paces actually from that bridge, you'll meet Mason Street and North Street. On the plaque of Salem's Retreat, the tale of Leslie's Retreat. Without that colonel paying the blacksmith to forge those cannons, the carriages, they would have never been transported out to Lexington, Concord. The battlefield where the shot heard around the world was heard. Without Colonel Mason or Joseph Witcher, it wouldn't have happened here. That's an abridged version of the story, believe it or not. 1841, you're going to see this massive court structure with those columns that you could see in Greece. If you see the U.S. Supreme Court building in Washington, it looks just like a match of the Parthenon in Greece, and that's examples of the Greek revival period again. Churches throughout Salem, and you see 4 here. As we finish up on Church Street, we're going to go by St. Peter's Church. That's the Tabernacle Church. On the corner of this street here, Church Street, you've got Salem 5 Bank. At one point in time, it was the Nickel Bank. I joke and say that's about my balance between a nickel and 5. On the second floor of Turner's Seafood, this is where the Lyceum Hall existed, where Alexander Graham Bell made the very first wired telephone call from here to the Boston Globe and said, "Dr. Watson, can you hear me now?" That's the plaque out front. This is also the spot where Bridget Bishop is believed to have owned her apple orchard, and the acquisition of her land may have been the motive behind making her the first person to go in 1692. Sadly, these reminders are everywhere diagonally through Rogers Side. You see that building at 10 Federal Street. That's where they discovered 2 beams while doing construction. Sadly, 150 people from 34 surrounding cities and towns awaited trial there. When we finish up, we go by the flags out front show that all creeds, colors, lifestyles are still welcome here in the city of friendship, the city of peace, the city of Salem. And that's one of my friends, a local historian. His name's Joe Bean, and he does tours with Bewitched Walking Tours. And for me, I say, as I travel through all day at a fast pace, I try to squeeze in as much as I can. We'll do a witch walking tour with any of the many tours that are around here, and you might find out some different information. But I promise to try to give you almost 400 years here in that 1 hour. I hope you had fun, but we're done in 1 minute. Just know that this building on the right was the 2nd Corps Cadet Armory. It stored live ammunition and more. Lou was the victim of fire in 1982 when an arsonist came through. And he scared this town when he burnt the Masonic Temple down. He also tried to light the police station on fire, but the botched burning led to him being caught, matching the fingerprints. A young detective with the name St. Pierre catches a Clement Levine. Well, 30 years later, in 2010, Clement Levine arrested again. Protected the city twice. Detective with the same name, St. Pierre, his younger son protected the street, walking the beat. The man that arrested the city of Salem twice. Now on the right, I told you that tale. H.P. Lovecraft wrote a story called The Thing Next Door about the Crown and Shield Bentley House, but the murder next door is where Captain White was murdered for his fortune one night. The inspiration for the game with the same name clue, the blueprint of the building, the Garden of Piggery Mansion. Do a quick QR code scan to see what it says true. Promise I'll never lie to you. But Roger and I, we appreciate any tips and gratuities, and we appreciate and split everything down the middle, as well as any good comments on TripAdvisor or Yelp. They do help. If you have any questions about which way to go, let me know, and I'll send you which way to go. Hope you all have a fun day.
Es como la pintura que está en el museo de Bruselas.
Ya terminamos el paseo en camioncito. Pasamos por unos chocolates, encontramos un chocolate zapoteca amargo. Está increíblemente bueno, pero está muy fuerte. No puedo creer lo fuerte que está, es más fuerte que un café. Llevo solamente este poquito y ya me siento súper feliz. Entonces estamos aprovechando el atardecer para ver qué más vamos a hacer.
Señora bruja.
¿Qué más vamos a hacer? Cuéntenle a la cámara qué tal te pareció el paseo.
Me gustó mucho, fue mucha información, pero de buena calidad me pareció. Pero fue muy intenso.
A mí me sorprendió porque lo único que conocía de Salem era lo de los juicios de las brujas y pensé que era lo único que había acá. Entonces toda esta cuestión histórica y...
Sí, es muy interesante porque no solamente hay genocidio con las brujas, sino también con los piratas, y con los negros, y con los esclavos, y con la guerra.
Gente con... sí, los de los faros que te dejaban ahí en cuarentena.
No escuché lo de los faros, no alcancé a escuchar. Las islas de cuarentena.
Las islas de cuarentena. ¿Cómo
sí.
Se llamaban? Small.
Es como el pueblo de la segregación por excelencia.
Sí,
Mississippi.
Misery.
No era Misery, era...
No, Small Misery y Big Misery, porque eran como los tiempos.
Porque le rompieron las piernas con un martillo.
Y es súper interesante cómo convirtieron su historia de genocidio en un lugar turístico, y con las nuevas tendencias ahora es un pueblo souvenir. Digo, hay unas partes que sí se ven muy residenciales, pero toda esta parte es como si toda esta colonia, este bloque fueran tiendas. Y es extraño porque se ve muy incluyente, hay banderas gay por todos lados y la gente se ve súper queer. Entonces parece que están tratando de lavar su reputación con inclusión. Y eso se me hace bastante bajo. Pero bueno, a mí me impresionó, pero no me gustó, ¿eh? Fue como así como de, mira, combina con el resto del lugar.
Bueno, a mí sí me gusta porque finalmente es historia, o sea... Bueno, o sea, cómo es Estados Unidos, cómo se fundó Estados Unidos. Me gusta saberlo, no me gusta lo que pasó.
Claro, no es que estás...
No es que esté de acuerdo, pero me gusta
Por eso
saberlo.
dije es impresionante, solo no es como precisamente bueno o en fin.
Me dijeron que tenían la colección de esas cosas, ¿no?
Sí.
Me gustó como cosa.
Es como chiquito para recorrer el día, ¿no? Parece.
A mí me pareció inmenso el lugar.
Pero ahora el centrito de Juayo.
Ah, el centrito sí, pero tiene su playita. No pensé que estuviera tan cerca, tan cerca la playa.
Y el puente y conecta con Beverly Hills. Sí. Pero ahí es allá.
O sea, se viene de ahí.
No, la familia vive ahí, pero ella le gusta. O sea, me intrigó este museo también, que ahora está cerrado porque no sé de qué es. O sea, dice Peabody Essex Museum.
Pero está abierto.
Y es así.
¿Es como la tienda o su museo?
¿Qué música museo?
Dice Papa Shop. Sí, ¿cómo podemos entrar?
We do ask for open drapes just to stay on the table. Oh, thank you.
So cute. Idéntico a Taquito.
Sí, es igual de grande. Está bien grandote mi taquito.
Mira.
Ay, ay, ay. Qué coso.
Estoy haciendo un desastre aquí.
Es igual gato de Kevin. También.
Mira, mira.
No sé a dónde voltear, son muchas cosas.
Una calabaza. El vampirito.
Está tan bonito.
Y está colgado al revés.
You're welcome. Have a great night.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you.
En esta tienda están reproducciones de los vestidos de la película Hocus Pocus. Y es de aquí la modista que hizo los vestidos. Y de este lado Hilario dice que le ha gustado mucho el arco. A mí me parece bastante sospechoso. Y nos vamos a tomar una fotografía en el arco.
Quieren ponerse esa.
Aquí no se la llevará. No. ¿La dejaste grabando? No, supongo que aquí no se la roban.
Deja ver, no alcanzo a abrir el arco. Ay. Ah, sí, ahí está el arco. Ponte para tu lado.
Súbete para el frente.
Creo que están lindas.
¿Quieres una foto?
Sí.
¿Una foto ustedes dos?
Ah, bueno, dale, como si.
Race to the right. This apartment building, right?
Ahora mirando para otro lado.
It's the night.
No, está buenísimo.
Está buena.
Muy buena también. Ah, esta me gusta, me ha pasado más.
Está súper chida.
Sí.
¿Y ahora?
¿Seguimos visitando tienditas? O.
Sí, vamos a terminar de caminar la calle.
¿O quieren hacer el intento de entrar a otro museo o tour o algo?
Pues hay que ver.
A mí se me hace que está como medio cerrado todo.
Ya.
Porque si las tiendas cierran a las 5 o 6.
Los museos creo que ya no. Solo que un tour nocturno, pero sería ya quedarnos más tarde.
Porque igual para cuando vayamos
El Witch
llegando.
Museum cierra a las 8.
Vamos.
¿Quieren que vayamos al Witch
Vamos.
Sí,
Museum?
vamos.
Dale, queda para allá. Pensé que cerraba más temprano.
Y para cuando termine, podemos regresar a Boston y ya va a ser la hora de cenar. Podemos
Sí.
buscar algo de comer allá, algo de cenar allá.
Ah, qué potente, pero qué rico.
¿Era café? ¿Tú pediste café?
Deja.
Un pop.
I'll ask questions. And my mom. You know.
Ah, esta es la casa que inspiró el coso del club, ¿no?
Esta era café.
Para que veas para que escanees este QR y sepas qué es lo que hay, qué es lo que pasó en esta casa. Según lo que nos contaban en el tour, esta casa inspiró el juego de Clue. Es una modificación de Monopoly. Y también dijo de que en la casita de al lado se escribió The Thing That Alan Poe, H.P. Lovecraft, y que en la casa atrás hay es la casa de un mass murder, ¿no?
No, de que hubo un asesinato y que el asesinato inspiró el juego.
De acá no dice nada de eso.
A lo mejor nos dijo puras mentiras.
Esta es la que dice que es de Edgar Allan Poe.
No house. Yo busqué Clubhouse Salem y me aparece esta. Así que es realmente esta. Bueno, vamos a decir que es esta. Digo. Gente reescribiendo.
Era lo que estaba como que
¿Hipotenusa? ¿Hipotenusa?
porque finalmente o sea, no se me hace hipócrita que sea el lugar queer, porque finalmente quien lo vuelve queer es la gente que lo habita. O sea, no es...
Bueno, los pueblos no se volvieron mágicos por sí solos, ¿eh?
Es la novia de Andre.
La novia de Andrea la que agarraste.
¿La novia de quién?
Bueno, lo que iba es que se me hace interesante o adecuado que el pueblo se haya vuelto queer, sea por la razón que sea, porque las personas queer, o sea, está como asociada a la historia de la persecución por ser queer. Me hace interesante que salga.
Sí, eso es súper interesante, coincido muchísimo contigo, pero velo de esta forma. Si el pueblo se empieza a identificar como queer, básicamente estamos a 2 malos gobiernos de que suceda otro genocidio en este pueblo.
Pero yo quiero creer que no.
No, pues yo también quiero creer que no, pero la historia de este país nos ha enseñado cosas diferentes.
Después podríamos sacar una foto, ¿ven? Y sacar una foto a la escuela de Pocos.
No sé, yo quisiera creer que no.
Pues sí, yo también quisiera creer que no.
Cierra a las 8 en Google Maps. Está re cerrado.
Y si los domingos también cierran.
No, de 10 a 5. Está mal puesto en Google Maps.
Oh.
Sugiere la corrección.
Ah, no. Witchboard Museum.
O sea, el museo de la
Ouija. El Witchboard Museum lo pasamos está en la calle de allá.
Ah.
¿Quieren ir?
¿Dice la banca?
¿Quieren volver? O...
This plaza is a gift to the city of Salem.
¿Quieren que vayamos a ver el colegio Hocus Pocus o es muy lejos?
Sí, vamos. No es como que esté abierto el museo para que...
para perder
para...
el tiempo.
Sí, como para perdernos un paseo por el museo.
Sí.
Las cosas que han pasado en este pueblo que se me hacen tan irónicas. como el nombre Salem, que es por Shalom, porque es un pueblo de paz.
Eso es
Y
buenísimo.
después la cantidad de matazones que hubo
Sí,
aquí
sí,
por
sí,
distintos, o sea, mataron brujas, indios, negros. Como triste, irónico,
No hubo
pirata.
persona que no haya sido asesinada.
O sea, de
No hay,
Pacífico,
no hay minoría que no haya sido oprimida en este pueblo.
Es que a veces se me hace como súper interesante cómo la gente vive su pueblo. O sea, si se sentirán orgullosos de vivir en Salem.
Bueno, el historiador es local y estudió esto y yo creo que nos dio esa otra versión.
¿Quién?
Como el guía no era un guía, era un historiador.
Ah.
Lo dijo al final.
No dijo que su amigo que hacía los tours caminando era historiador.
Ah, ok.
Entendí eso. Pero podemos decir que era historiador, ¿por qué no? Nadie nos va a contar eso.
Finalmente es la historia de la humanidad. No es que los humanos seamos muy pacíficos.
Mira que la rolen.
Ahí traen unos édimos si quieres.
Yo con esto tengo esto
Con
fuertísimo.
eso yo por eso pedí.
Yo creo que voy a dejar el alcohol y voy a empezar a darle al chocolate. Ayuda contra la hipertensión, regula el ritmo cardíaco después de acelerarlo un chingo.
Sobrevivir la acelerada.
Sí.
Tienes que tener cuidado que el pico no sea tu máximo.
Mejora la circulación. ¿Qué más hace?
Es rico.
Es rico.
Me gustó
Es
mucho
afrodisíaco.
la charla de eso de la droga antimalaria. Todavía me sigue resonando, no sé por qué.
Es que no fue una charla, fue una clase.
Sí. Y aparte, o sea, obvio que está armada como para que parezca una historia de éxito, pero realmente es como re loco como todo el trabajo
Como
que
fue-
hicieron. Sí, cómo fueron modificando.
Lo que ya no me pude quedar a preguntarle es ¿cómo sintetizan todo eso? O sea, ¿qué hora sintetizan 500 moléculas distintas?
¿Será que hacen cosas como al azar y después o sea, una reacción y después las separan en otros compuestos?
Sí, porque a poco... Bueno,
¿Cómo haces para generar 2000
porque a poco
compuestos?
poco podrás predecir cuál compuesto va a ser algo, o sea...
Sí. Igual
Bueno, por
es
ahí
como- por ahí la tridimensionalidad de la molécula sí se puede predecir Sí.
por los enlaces estos de carbono que no son flexibles y que son más ricos. O sea, eso sí se puede como predecir. Pero si va a tener el efecto, no sé, como muy me parece muy azaroso, no sé. Pero no sé si los o si los sintetizan de manera dirigida o si sintetizan los 2000 compuestos en una mezcla y luego los caracterizan por HPLC.
Igual me
No
encanta
lo
porque
separan, ¿o cómo?
imagino que unos químicos deben estar diciendo ¿y cómo harán 1000 secuencias de ADN al azar? El tipo las predice y ya está.
¿Pero crees que haya una equivalencia así? Porque la síntesis orgánica es súper complicada.
Sí. Una muy buena pregunta.
O bueno, en la época en la que yo estudié síntesis orgánica, actualmente no sé cómo queda.
Creo que no me gusta el 0,5, pero bueno. Como que te distorsiona todo.
Prueba el 0,5 así horizontal.
Sí, ya ahí le saqué.
¿Qué fue?
Verga, se le cayó una nuececita.
Ah, fue una nuez. ¿Fue una nuez? ¿De qué tamaño son estas? Ah, son estas.
Sí, estas bolitas.
Mira, no está tan mal, 0,5 horizontal.
Está bonita.
Sí.
Es como una bellota.
Estoy viendo si duele. Sí duele. Bueno, si cae sobre todo de más arriba. Sí.
Pero muy loco como
Ahí
viste
está.
cuando dijeron, bueno, y que quisimos cambiar la polaridad, entonces acá probamos tac, estos enlaces ¿viste? Cuando van derivando.
Pero también eso es como lo que me... Porque
Hemos terminado de comer. Coméntanos qué comimos. ¿Te gustó lo que comimos?
fish and chips. Sí, me gustaron.
Háblanos de tu plato.
Yo.
Sí.
Yo me pedí una hamburguesa con cheddar y bacon que tenía papas fritas y pedí una controversial IPA que acá Hugo la criticó fuertemente, pero bueno, diciendo que no maridaba con el plato.
También le pregunté si no prefería acompañar su hamburguesa con una cerveza, pero bueno, prefirió tomar una IPA.
Sí.
La IPA no es una cerveza.
No, sí, pero es el chiste, es como la
ya,
tecate.
ya.
Si me da una tecate, oye, ¿y no quiere
sí,
tomar
que
una
tú
cerveza?
No me dejas tomar coronitas. Usa las coronitas.
No, las coronitas ya les agarré respeto.
Ya les
Es linda la
¿Ya las
estatua
probé?
de Bewitch, a pesar de su mancha.
La coronita no califica como cerveza.
Antes no, estaba muy diluida. Pero recientemente las cervezas cambiaron sus recetas, están muy bien. Cambiaron de manantial.
Mira, Pirates and Puritans.
¿Pirates and qué?
Puritans.
¿Dónde dice?
Puritanos, ahí a la izquierda. Ese cartel.
¿Este?
Sí.
Pirates and Puritans. Witchcraft and...
Ah, mira, creo que ese es el tour que nos perdimos.
Todavía podemos tomarlo. Sí, le pagamos in situ.
O sea, parece un grupo de gente rodeado al lado de una persona blanca.
Parece esta parte como la Roma Condesa, ¿no?
Más o menos.
Las mesecitas y las mesitas.
Sí, por las mesitas. Es más barato que Roma Condesa. No puedo creerlo. ¿Cuánto te costó tu cerveza?
8.
Es más barato que la Roma Condesa.
¿Quieren que ya vamos o quieren recorrer un poco más?
Quería pasar al mercado. ¿Cómo vamos de tiempo? ¿Así llegamos bien?
En 15 minutos sale uno. Y si no sale uno, en una hora más. ¿Quieren que vayamos allí?
Sí, la pregunta es: ¿quieren pasar aquí o quieren pasar en Boston?
Exacto.
Sí, mejor en Boston.
En Boston.
Boston, Mass.
Solo quería ver si había ciruelas acá.
Muy boshi.
Sí.
Ay, sí, ahora las compramos ahí en Boston.
¿Del Leishmar?
Sí. ¿Y qué estaba con Martín? ¿Qué estaba ahí? ¿Cómo se llama Martín? Vos sos tonto con el Bunny.
¿Qué tal que nos perdimos de los mejores como todos el mundo?
Tienen 3 estrellas Michelin.
¿O no? Solo por eso voy a llegar a investigarlos y a ver reviews.
Solo hay 2 opciones: que sean buenísimos o que sean malísimos. Porque no fuimos. O sea,
Sí.
algo intermedio no puede ser.
Pero sí las críticas.
Sospecho que la...
Los top 3 lugares que tienes que visitar en Salem, Massachusetts. Hot dog, Boston Hot dog.
Por acá estaba la tapa de la tapa de drenaje que hemos visto. Ahí la van a ver cuando crucemos.
¿Pero qué decía? ¿El nombre de la
Dice
ciudad?
Salem y tiene un barquito y la fecha de cuándo se hizo la ciudad.
Uy, sí pega su flash.
Sí, está potente.
Poderoso. Ese flash lo trae integrado el gimbal.
Sí. Qui.
Thank you for visiting Visita. Esta es.
Esta es esta. Pero si le tomaste foto o le quito.
Llegué, porque están cruzando los Alpes.
Igual puedes tomarle fotos si le echas luz.
¿Se está viendo? Le quito la luz.
Perfecto. No, ya se ve bien.
Está muy linda.
Ay.
1998 dice.
1998.
98.
O sea, no es la fecha de
No creo.
Pero este sí dice wait.
Sí.
Los de Worcester dicen wait.
Qui.
Ese es el puente que cruzaba Berlín, me parece.
Sí.
El puente que cruzaba Berlín. Sí,
Que es la ciudad que es en donde está New England Biolabs.
sí.
¿Dónde está qué?
New England Biolabs.
En realidad, los headquarters están en Ipswich, una cosa así, que queda un poquito más al sur, más cerca de Boston.
Piu.
En realidad son ametralladoras.
Córrele.
Es un sonido al que están acostumbrados.
Les recuerda a sus escuelas.
Thirty-three.
Si fuera
Literally like
automatizado irá. Avance.
Súbale, pásale.
Señora.
Circulando, joven.
Se compra. ¿Qué más dice?
Lavadoras, refrigeradores, microondas y fierro viejo que venga.
Es increíble que sea como a lo largo de toda Latinoamérica. Y el ruidito. Yo lo que entiendo es que esta es la única. Es acá, me parece. Entiendo que es acá.
¿Aquí está parado?
Porque no hay otro que vaya para otro lado.
Ay, voy a tomar la foto.
¿Le echo luz?
No,
¿Me ayudas, por favor?
no te lo has logrado acabar.
No, me lo estoy chiquiteando porque...
Acá. Mira qué sonido. Se llama chatarrero megáfono sonido. Gracias. Esto es de todo.
Pero sí tiene un tono parecido, como decir, ¿me lo puedes mandar?
Sí, te lo mando. Es igual.
También está el de los ricos, tamales, oaxaqueños.
Lleve sus ricos tamales oaxaqueños.
Pero ese es horrible porque cuando sales, o sea, pasa el de los tamales y cuando sales a buscar el estúpido carrito de los tamales ya el camión y eso se queda un ratito. Pero el de los tamales suena, cuando sales a buscarlo ya se muere, tienes que andar corriendo y luego como hace eco, pues no lo escuchas en qué lado está.
Tienes que ecolocalizar.
¿Dónde diantres está? Y el otro, el de...
¿Pero de qué te trataba?
Se trataba de que son organilleros zombies, entonces te vas acercando con el organillo. Entonces tienes que disparar. Pero no sé si igual sea demasiado agresivo porque se consideran como algo artístico de la Ciudad de México.
Patrimonio cultural de la Ciudad de México.
Quedan cancelados.
Entonces que les tienes que disparar porque pues si se te acercan, te convierten en zombie como cualquier zombie, ¿no? Pero el punto es que si están lejos la música se oye quedito y te puedes mover a velocidad normal, pero conforme se van acercando entras como al radio, como a un radio de hipnosis de la música, ya no te puedes mover tan rápido. Entonces tienes que como dispararlos antes de que se te acerquen. ¿Tú traes la bolsa?
Sí. ¿Me ayudas? Llegó un momento en el que estaban considerados en peligro de extinción. Dijeron que quedaban como 18 organilleros en todo el país y el gobierno empezó a promoverlos y a pagarles.
Muy bien.
Y ahorita ya son una epidemia otra vez.
No sé.
Mira, ese es el punto.
Ah, cierto.
Bueno, pues estamos ya de nuevo en North Station, Boston, regresando de Salem, regresando de Salem. Son 9:22, nuestro tren de South Station sale Worcester a las
11.
A las 11. Tenemos hora y media para caminar, para dar el rol por Boston. Ya comimos, entonces vamos a caminar. Una propuesta es caminar de aquí, de North Station a South Station. No es tanto, yo creo que serán 30 minutos, habrá que...
Sí, pero vamos a
dar el
rodear
rol.
por los muelles
Ah, sí.
y bueno, a ver qué pasa.
Sí.
Me consigo.
El tema es que queda 20% de batería. Y yo creo que
Hasta aquí llegó el...
por aquí llega el video, sí. Y no lo sé.
¿Vamos como derecho?
Voy a
Quieren pasar por Boston.
ver si hay alguna parte que me llame la atención y la grabaré, y si no, haré algunos videos en la parte a donde lleguemos.
Pero luego de ahí todavía hay que caminar más. ¿Doble del Guppy o qué?
No sé, ¿será algún proyecto que alguien está como probando, algún estudiante? Porque...
Por ahí dije,
ahí sí. Como del otro lado, uno de los codos, como que parece que están levantando una chota así. Como 360. De acá no se ve, pero del lado
Porque yo vi un meme de un sitio argentino, porque esto lo inauguraron creo que en febrero de este año.
¿Dónde en qué lugar de Argentina está la estatua de Gaturro?
En Palermo, en la ciudad de Buenos Aires. Sí, es un barrio.
¿Palermo de División Palermo?
Sí, en el mismo barrio.
¿Y la estatua de Mafalda?
Está en San Telmo, porque es el barrio de Quino. Pero la estatua de Mafalda está
Sí, no,
impoluta,
yo
la
sé
gente
que
la
está.
ama.
Sí.
Pero la de
Gaturro. Quiero tomarme mi foto antes.
Sí. Con la banda que
Está
está.
muy abstracto. O sea, son...
Most Tracy's could have been too.
Se supone que, o sea, es una mano.
Está inspirada en una foto que es un abrazo de él con su esposa. Sí, me parece. Es medio abstracto. Pero si vos fumás, y era como...
Pues estas son las manos de su esposa.
Claro, y las manos de él. Pero es que está buen hecho, como que ellos se abrazan entre sí. Y decía, por ahí hace una noticia de...
Yeah, you feel me? I think you would have seen it, bro. Because the last one, I would want to come on.
¿Quién que vayamos a buscar los patitos? Tengo que volver por allá.
¿Fuera?
Por allá. Por donde va a ser esa cosa de policía.
Entonces hay que cruzar el camino de vuelta.